Hi, I'm Michael Gore, and I'm here again today to talk about boundaries. This is going to be part 4, towards the end of our boundary chapter, and we're going to talk about why your boundaries must come from values. This might be self-explanatory for some people, but we're just going to explain a little bit today. So why your boundaries must come from values is that values keep you accountable to something outside of yourself. Now, which in turn also keep you accountable to yourself. I know that's kind of confusing, but if we use the triangle again, you have yourself and your value and your present moment. So the value is also your future in this case. Now, people hire coaches, people hire me, people hire a lot of people to keep them accountable. But one way we can keep ourselves accountable in the present moment when we have a flood of emotions, we'll just pretend this is emotions coming in, or even going up. Could be either way. We'll just call it E squared. I don't know, sounds good. So when you have all these emotions going on, what are you going to make a decision from? What we talked about. This is going to sound a little familiar from what we talked about. But it has to be based on some values, because that way you keep yourself accountable, not someone else or situation outside of yourself keeping you accountable. So some values that I like to use, one of the main ones is trust. Trust can be considered an emotion, maybe not a value. So when we talk about trust, whenever I'm in a situation I don't know what to do, or I'm trying to think, oh, I'll do this, or this one, and what I have to come back to is I take that deep breath and I say, I'm just going to trust. And I come back to the feeling of trust. And so what's really important is that values help you create feelings. They help you create feelings to feel safe in, to come back to. Since they allow you to create these feelings, you know where you want to go every single time. So when you're in the midst of all these moments, or I'm going to start making a business business series here coming up next, and we're going to talk about how values help you sell, because you're always being accountable to the truth, which is another value, honesty, right? So we have trust, honesty, we have respect, we have one of my favorites, we'll just put it up here, accountability. So when you start basing your creation of who you are on values instead of what people think those are for you, well then all of a sudden those can't be manipulated, they can't be used against you, they'll be used for you because you're creating your life from them. And so you always know the feeling of these values or emotions that you want to live your life by, or that you want to create from. And emotions are very powerful. It's what makes you make a decision, your feelings. It's not you don't think first and then you have a feeling after. It's always the feeling first, whether it's unconscious or conscious. And the difference between those two, I'm not going to go into too much today, is that you're able, because we talked about it before, you're able to stop in the present moment, take a breath, and you're able to ask, what does trust feel like? What does accountability feel like in the situation? And it doesn't mean you get the answer right away. It means you sit with the uncomfortability in the present with all these emotions in your head, and you have to start listening with your heart and not so much your head until the answer comes to you. It's not something you're going to figure out all the time in your head, like, yes, that's it, no, yes, no. It's not a logical thing. It's a feeling. The values are feelings that you can live your life by. It's an accountability system that you never have to pay someone for. It's one that you get to create over and over and over again, and you fine tune it. And once you understand that you're building this safety network inside of you, you know what it feels like to be honest. You know what it feels like to be living your truth. You know what it feels like to have respect, to have accountability, even if you weren't aware. And the hardest part for people getting over their past, their self, is that of who they were, is that they had to be accountable for things they didn't know they were doing to other people. And then what happens is, okay, someone talks about it. If we use a triangle, again, I don't have much room here. Let's do this real quick. Let's erase. So let's say you have these values, right, that we just talked about. And you have this again. Someone says, you're not being honest. Okay, that's person 1. You're person 2. And 3 is honesty. And so when you're in a, let's say maybe an argument or something with your partner or a loved one or business or whatever, they have their perception, right? We talked about this with the fly in one of my previous videos. You have your perception, but what is the perception on? The perception is on honesty. And so what can we do when we go about basing our life on a value? Well, we can ask more questions, right? Because what you're going to end up doing when you ask more questions with this partner or person, partner 1 and you're number 2, when you ask more questions, what you're actually going to do is you're going to define honesty between you two. Instead of throwing all these other emotions, all this other past crap, everything else into the conversation, what you're actually going to do is ask more questions in order to understand, for both of you to agree on a reality called honesty. And then eventually someone will say, well, I didn't even know that's what was hot. I didn't know. So when that happens, you can say, well, I wasn't being dishonest. I just didn't know, and I'm sorry. Do you see how you can be sorry because you didn't know you weren't being honest? You see how that works? It's not that you weren't, it's not that you weren't being honest. It's that you weren't even aware that someone was going through a situation. So you can, all of a sudden, you can objectively view honesty and say, hey, if I'm John and Sue, hey, Sue, I didn't know that happened. So I could have made a different decision, but I wasn't dishonest. I was using the only information that I had. So when we start using values as our way to live our life and to create our life and who we want to be, well then we can objectively view any situation from this point in the triangle, right? So if you make a point of where you want to live your life, well then all of a sudden you have these points again. You can do it in business, in life, but your creation of who you want to be and how you live your life has to be on what you value. And what you value has to be something higher. I mean, it can be lower. I'm not saying that's the way you want to go, but honesty, gratefulness, joy, what do these emotions, what do these values feel for you? It's very important for you to understand how to know what they feel like inside your body so you have a gauge of how to keep yourself accountable. Oh, am I being grateful right now? Nope, I'm not. Am I being honest right now? No, I could have done a little bit better. And so the levels never stop. And you get so good at being honest, you get so good at being accountable, that even the tiniest grain of sand in that light of honesty or in that light of truth or in that light of trust, it can't survive in who you want to be because you're a living expression of these things. And so once you decide that you want to be these things, you start writing down, what kind of values do I want to live my life by? What type of values do I want to feel? Do I want to be wise? Do I want to be happy? All these things, you can start writing about them. And we're going to talk about that more in a different episode. Once again, my name is Michael Gore, and I want to thank you for tuning in today and taking the time out of your day to hear this message that I brought for you guys. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube. If you're on my Instagram profile, please click the follow button right here. Please also go ahead and email me if you have any questions, concerns, you want to know more, anything that is going on in your life, go ahead and hit the email button right here on my Instagram. And I want to thank you for tuning in today.